Welcome to my free series of leadership and ritual facilitation videos. You can donate to help me offer more of these classes and write on these topics. There's more information in the video details below.
Okay, so the question is about pre-recording. Have you ever used pre-recorded music, chants, or meditations, etc. in your rituals? What do you suggest for newbies? And have you done any of your own recordings to plan ritual to keep the mood and the energy going?
So the answer I'm going to give is very similar to the one I did about microphones. Whenever you're working with technology, there's a risk that it won't work. And that is something that, like, if you've ever done a PowerPoint presentation for work or any other context, whenever you're working with technology, you absolutely, this goes back to contingency planning. You absolutely must understand that it might fail. So you have to be able to adapt around that. So that's the first caveat I will offer, is that if your technology does not work, you need to still be able to pull off your ritual without that. Second part of that is, when your technology fails, it's often very, sorry about that. It's often very, very distracting when your technology fails. So that's something where you want to be aware of that. You want to you want to know, okay, we're doing this thing, and this, that I'm trying to think of a good example. Like your speakers squeal, there's feedback, or it's not loud enough. You realize that you have this boombox and you're out in a field and the sound is just getting sucked up out into the air and it's not loud enough. So it's not even that the technology fails in the sense that it's not working at all, but it's, or there's that hissy, feedbacky kind of a sound, or there's any number of things like that can happen. So you want to know that the more complicated you make things, the more things that can go wrong. So that goes into your contingency planning with that. That being said, if you are doing an indoor ritual and you have a really amazing sound system to work with, and you have people who are technically proficient enough to do it, you could add in some pre-recorded stuff. There's a couple of issues with that. One is, again, and I'm speaking as someone who does extemporaneous ritual and ecstatic ritual, I can't predict where the energy is going to be. So I don't necessarily know that what I pre-recorded is going to match the energy of where the group is. So that's a risk I am generally unwilling to take. There are times where I have considered doing pre-recorded things, and it's something I may experiment with at some point. Like, I could record a trance journey that would play, like if I were doing a ritual where people are traveling around the room and going to different altars, and maybe I've set up one of the altar in like a gazebo tent, and people are going in there and they're doing devotional work at a grail shrine, and maybe I've pre-recorded a trance that is basically 3 or 4 questions being asked over and over and over again. So, everybody who goes into that grail shrine is going to have the exact same experience. The same questions are going to be asked. That could work. That could absolutely work. Or, if, there's a specific piece of music that I want to use to get people, if I want to start out the ritual to kind of get people into their, into their headspace. And, I could see places where it would work. I mean, I have music that I listen to because music is huge for me. But if I don't have 100 people chanting with me in my room, it kind of doesn't work the same. And me chanting on my own is something I do for devotional work, but it's not the same. And so, if I'm trying to get into a certain energetic headspace, I use music for that very much for my own personal practice. So I'm not going to say it can't work, but I'm going to say it has to be planned very well. It has to be, your sound equipment. You have to know your sound equipment and know what it's capable of and know what can go wrong and have people who can handle that. You have to know that your sound equipment could fail and be able to negotiate around that. Um, Again, I can see specific ways that it can work, but it's going to leave you less flexibility. There are certain rituals where it would work really well. Like I know people that do music-based rituals where they play a specific song and then they do a piece of ritual and then they play another specific song and then they do a piece of ritual, and modern rock music, like from a specific musician. And if that's what you're doing in your ritual and that's part of your intent, sure, that can work. That can absolutely work. The approach that I'm coming from is a lot more, again, that ecstatic perspective, where I'm very much focusing on the energy of the group and where the group is at, and pre-recorded stuff doesn't allow me to do that quite as well. I would be interested in experimenting with that, with kind of finding that gray area between ritual and installation art.
If you have any questions about ritual facilitation or leadership for pagan groups, please feel free to contact me. I love questions and I love writing articles or recording videos for actual issues that people are facing in the community. If this webinar is useful for you, please consider donating. It is my goal to make this education available for all, but to do that I have to pay the bills. I also have several books available, and there are links below under Show More, or you can contact me via my website or social media.